I am excited about this.
I feel like I still don't know. Like I kind of know, but it's such a kind of like a foreign topic because I haven't done a lot of research into it. So even though you explained it, it's still I think I just still don't know. So I'm excited to see like what it is and what came up.
I'm so curious to see how this feels for you because it was very specific, like in terms of a theme for you, and that does often happen. But I'm really curious to see how this lands for you. So how are you feeling in general? Just like
I'm excited.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll jump in because there's kind of quite a bit here. Okay. So I set my intention for our session, and it was to be a clear channel and communicator for whatever insight, wisdom, and guidance Nichole is ready to receive for her highest good.
Oh, I like that intention.
Yeah, I pretty much like copy paste that one every time because I feel like it leaves a lot of open space, which I like. I like to kind of leave it to spirit to see what comes through. I know you had written down a couple questions and Gabby had asked a couple things about like specifics, but I like to try to leave it open because I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. What is she?
Yeah, whatever comes up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about my process. I told you about it last time, but just in case somebody has not listened to the last podcast or it didn't make the edits, I typically meet my spirit team in my place of nature, and then we kind of bubble together and cleanse and get ready, and then we go to the records. And when we get to the records, I always pick up the key first from the librarian, and sometimes I get information there, sometimes I don't. For you, I did get a little bit of information, so I'll talk about that. And then I go to your room, and oftentimes, sometimes I get information from the door, sometimes not. Not really with you. There wasn't anything like super specific. And then when the door opens, normally I either step into a past life or like I'll just step right into the records room and I'll start to kind of get a feel for what's going on there. And for you, I did step into a past life, and that was a lot of what I received. So, and then there was like a theme there that carried into, I spoke with a little, some of your counsel and got a little bit more information about your soul. And that was kind of where I ended. So that's my process. So I'll just take you through how it went for you.
Okay.
And, I'm going to ask questions throughout, like if things resonate and whatnot, but feel free to stop me at any time, especially because the past life part is so story driven. Like I'll probably be talking a lot, but feel free to interrupt at any time. Okay, cool.
I'm going to take notes.
So yeah, definitely. All right. So first thing, I have two spirit guides who I work primarily with, and they were both there. They're always both there. Also, Mother Mary showed up today. And sometimes like other spirit guides or angels or like ascended masters will show up. So she showed up with me today too. And I think there's a bit of a theme with her as to why she showed up. I'm never really sure in the beginning, like why certain guides show up, but I'll circle back to that. But she was there as well. So when we made our way to the records, I went and got your key. Very clear, very immediate. Your key was handed to me with a red string on it. So sometimes I get string, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's just a key, and it's like a leather. It's like a leather string, so a red leather string. So I don't know if red means anything to you, but that was the string on your key. And then when I like looked at your key, it was pretty large, and it was really interesting. Sometimes keys for me are like solid, like they don't move or anything. They're just like a solid key. Yours kind of like opened up. So I hope I'm going to explain this well. But your key, when it came to me, it was like a straight line key. And then there was like a little hole at the top where the string was holding it. So it's just like a pencil almost with a string on the top. And then the top part opened up like a fan. It went all the way around. I kind of like tried to draw a picture. It's not very good, but like it's not good at all. But like if you think about like this is the string, like the key like fanned out, and then like the rest of the key was like down here.
Okay.
So it fanned all the way out. And when I was looking at it, I was like, at first I thought it was like sun's rays or something. Like I'm like, what is this? And then it became clear to me that it was like, you know, those old timey fans that women would use that like they were flat and then they would like
Uh-huh.
fan out.
Uh-huh.
That's what it was. That's what it was like representing.
Okay.
And almost like accordion style, right? Like it was like all pushed together and then it like fanned out.
I love those fans.
So I immediately had this sense, like I looked at the librarian and I was like, okay, what is this? And she kind of had like this like twinkle in her eye a little bit. And I was like, okay. And I had this feeling, this energy come to me that was like this sort of like spy energy. Like, like you're hiding a little bit. Like it was almost like a little like, you know, putting your fan in front of your face. So I'm like, okay, she like has spy energy, like hiding actress maybe, like you're pretending to be something when you're something else. So that was very clear right up front that there was some kind of energy there with that. And then she sent me on my way. Okay. So when I got to your door, like there was nothing really that I was like really drawn to. I mean, it was a large door. That same sort of like design was kind of on it, but it wasn't drawing me in. So I just went ahead and stepped into your room. So when I stepped into your room, immediately I was like blinded by sunlight, which does often happen for me. It's almost like I step in and it's like the scene kind of like appears that way. And when the sunlight kind of like faded and I could see where I seemed to be in a vineyard on like a beautiful hillside. I could see like rolling hills of like grapes planted. And I could hear like children running, like I heard like laughter, little girl laughter, like running through the vineyard kind of. And immediately I had the sense that it was, at first I thought it was France, but then I felt like it was Italy. So Italy in a vineyard, and I got the sense that it was in like the early 1940s. And then I'm always like asking like, okay, where is Nichole in this scene? Like, where is she? And then I saw like a teenage-ish looking woman standing in the vineyards, like picking grapes. And that was you. So I walked over. It appeared that you were about like 18 or 19. And I could sense your energy. It was like you were really nervous. Like you were standing there picking grapes. Like I think you were supposed to be doing like a chore almost, but you were thinking about something else. It was clear that you had something on your mind. So when I dug into that, I could see in your pocket that there was a piece of paper that was folded accordion style. So it was like that same sort of theme of
like we used to do when we were kids.
Yep. So it was folded really tight, and it was like you actually had like an apron on. I think it was something with the grapes. I don't know, but you had this little piece of paper in your apron. And I realized that it was a map, and you were thinking about the map. So essentially what I started to understand was that you were of a wealthy family in Italy. And this was like during the time of like World War II, and there was like a German occupation in France at this time. So, and Italy was like your family was on the side with the Germans, and like you were going off to school in France, like some kind of not like college, I guess, but not, I don't know if it's like college, but your family was sending you into France to go to like some kind of school where you were going to be like tended to by the German occupation there. Like, but what you were really going to do was you were going to spy. So
I just got chills.
Yeah. So you like were of this wealthy family, like they had all these means to like send you here to this like fancy school or whatever it was. And they thought like, oh, our daughter is going to go like learn to do whatever. But really you had gotten involved with like a spy network. And they obviously had no idea. So there was this guy. So I'm like, how did she even get here? Like involved with this. So I got shown this like backstory a little bit. There was this boy that you had grown up with, and I didn't sense there was any like romantic relationship here at all. It was just like maybe like your best friend, your closest friend that you had grown up with. And I almost felt like maybe it was your husband now. Like that's that energy. Although it wasn't romantic, I didn't feel that way, but you know,
I mean, yeah,
always.
Yeah, that's what I hear, right? Sometimes it's you had lives together, not always necessarily in the same role, right?
Right. Yeah. But he was like very important to you. And so he actually had family in France. So I don't know if he like was French or if he just had family there, but they had sent a lot of word about like how horrible it was and like how awful the Germans were. And he was like telling you all of this, and he had kind of gotten involved with like resistance groups. And I could tell, like, as I was watching you two, like, he was sharing this with you as like a confidant. Like, in the beginning, I could tell that you were kind of like, oh, I don't like really know if I want anything to do with this. Like, I'm sorry. But he was like, once he kept talking to you, I really saw this energy in you, like this energy of like justice kind of come up where you were like, this isn't right. Like, and you kind of started to lean into that a little bit more. And as you did, and as you told him that you were like, because your family was like very much on the other side. So you had been brought up to believe like we're on the right side, like everybody else. And so as you like kind of internalized what you were hearing and like really like rolled it over for yourself, you kind of started to realize like, I don't think I believe what my family believes. Like, and
so family was like pro Hitler, pro Nazi,
yeah,
like pro all of that.
Like fascist, like very like into that alliance with like Hitler, and like felt like your family felt very safe because they had means, like they were wealthy, they were aligned with like this huge power. It didn't feel like they had thought a lot about it other than like their own personal safety. But as you were like really considering it and hearing your best friend's like stories from his family in France about how like horrible everything was, and they were like destitute and, you know, under occupation, like you started to really think like, I don't know if I actually believe this. So your friend knew that you were going to be going to France for this like finishing school or whatever it was. And he kind of like, it was interesting to see because it was like he almost knew you so well that he knew that like you would come around. I didn't feel like he pressured you at all, but it was like he kept kind of sharing with you. And then eventually you kind of shared with him, like, I think I'm like with you. Like, I think I don't believe what my family believes. And he was like, well, if that's true, like you're going into France, like I'm part of this resistance group. Like there are opportunities for you if you want to fight back in a way. So that's how you kind of got like roped into all this. So essentially you like accepted a position as a spy. And your task was just like to gather information. Does that resonate?
Every time you say that, I get like my whole body chills. Like every time you say that, because I'm wondering if it's because I've always wanted to be, not always, but I always thought I'd be a really good detective because I'm really good at finding things out, you know, like those, like the memes of like, I can't find his profile, you know, and then like, here comes the girl with like the FBI, like, what's his name? And, you know, you find him in like 5 minutes. Like, that's always kind of been like me. I can find shit out, and I was always really interested in it, and I always thought that'd be really cool to be like not a detective, sorry, like a private investigator. I always thought that I would be a really good private investigator, and I love spy movies, right? Like the James Bond movies, or just like any kind of, you know, movie that has that kind of theme.
Well, I think
like John Wick, it's not, like John Wick isn't like a spy movie, but right, just kind of that theme of like the underworld and like the happenings and how those things go on. But yeah, like I love those like spy. I used to read like, you know, Nancy Drew, Encyclopedia Brown. Like I always loved a good kind of like mystery detective type of book as a kid, and even now as an adult I like it.
Yeah, well, I think there's a reason for that. Yeah, so I'll there's more to this than just this life, but this life you were definitely a spy. So yeah, you ended up going, so you were like, I accept my assignment, like I'm gonna totally like do this. So back to the scene of you holding like in the grape field, it took me back to that. So you had this map in your pocket, and it was, they knew, like the resistance group you were working with knew where you were going. So they're like, this is your assignment, this is where you're going to be. But the map like was going to show you where you needed to go to like drop off your information to other people in the resistance so that they could then pass it along to whoever needed it for, you know, information, like to attack tanks or to like, whatever information you got, like the map was to show you, here's how you bring it to the next person so that they can then get it to where it needs to go. So you were nervous. And so I realized that day, as you were standing there, like kind of like, touching the map in your pocket and just like, you were anxious, like you were like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this. I realized that was your like going away day. So there was like a big dinner planned that night, or the next day you were leaving, but that was like your going away party day. So I saw them like call you back, and you had like this big fancy dinner with your family. And the whole time you were kind of like trying to be like, yay, and whatever. But really in your mind, you're like, holy shit, like I'm about to go do this thing.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay. So at this time, I don't know why it came through right here, but as you were like getting ready to leave to go to France, I had a flash. It's funny you just said this, but like I had a flash of like several other lifetimes where you had done this, like this kind of like leaving home, going to like this assignment, in like the underground or whatever. Like I saw like you as a medieval woman, and I saw you like flash the fan over your eyes. Like you were this rich medieval woman, but I just knew inherently like whatever you were doing, you were spying in that lifetime. I saw almost like like an Egyptian type of life where you were doing this kind of work. So I had this like knowing that like as you were leaving to go do this work in this lifetime, I was like, oh, she's done this many times before. Like this is not her first go round here.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get a lot of information. It was just like so that I would know like this is a theme for you.
Interesting.
So, okay, then I got to the next flash. So I saw you in like a fancy like ballroom situation, and you were dancing with this German soldier, like very attractive, blonde, like very decorated German soldier, and you were like so like you were playing the part. Like it was wild. Like you were like dancing with him. I definitely got the sense that he was attracted to you, like physically, romantically, but you were just like playing along and like dancing and like wooing him. And you were like totally aware that he was into you and totally like strategically using that. And so he was sharing information with you. Like you used this relationship to get a lot of information about, like, I got the sense that he was pretty high up. And you were getting all kinds of information about like their plans of attack or where they were like storing important materials, like artillery things. And I saw that you would write down this information that you learned from him, and you would fold it into the fan. And then you actually had like a fan, like a real fan like that. And you would like tuck it in somehow into the like wooden part. So it almost looked like it was like a layer of the fan. You know how sometimes those fans have like layers of paper? You made it so it looked like it was just another layer of paper. And that's how you like carried your information across like checkpoints and stuff. And then when you would get to where you needed to go or who needed the information, you would slip it out of the fan and like give it to the next person. So you did this like really well.
That's so funny, Ashley, because yeah, I remember doing that a lot as a kid, right? Like making the accordion fans and then kind of like folding it up and like, and I remember doing that. And then even now, I don't own one, but I've always wanted one. Like every time I see one, I want it. And I just never found one that I really liked. Like anytime we've traveled, there will be some, and I'm like, oh, that's just not like, it looks really cheap. Like I wanted a really good quality one. And like one of my best friends, she always has a fan, so she's always kind of fanning it out. And my cousin, I was at his house recently, and same thing, he had a fan, and I was like, I'm not good at like the hand flicking of it, but it's something that I was like, I want to like get this. Like it just felt, I'm always so drawn to those darn fans.
Yeah. Well, this is how you carried your secret spy information.
Oh.
So apparently you definitely want to like, you want to reconnect with that, I guess. That's so funny. Yeah, so you did this really well for a while. So I had the sense that this went on for like a couple of years and that you were like delivering tons of information. You kept up like a really good front. Like it was all you, I could feel energetically like your confidence growing in it, and that you like really stepped into the part, and like you were, it was like you were really aligned in doing this work. So I don't know what happened. I'm oftentimes like not shown every detail, but the scene flipped, and this guy like that you had gotten all this information about started to suspect you. And I had a feeling that it was like, I had a feeling like that he had told you something like really specific that maybe he hadn't told anybody else, or that maybe nobody else knew. And like when you passed it along, and some like he kind of started to be like, she's the only one I told that. Like, and then the French army was able to figure that exact thing out at the exact place and time. Like he started to kind of like connect dots a little bit. And I actually saw you writing. I don't know. I had a sense that it was to that boy, to that man, that your best friend, like back home or whatever. I actually saw you writing on a paper, like on a letter, he's starting to suspect me. So even you like kind of had the sense that like something shifted in the energy a little bit. And so I saw him like follow you at one point, and I don't even know, I didn't even see what the scene was, but I just saw that he was like in the shadows, and you were doing something with this resistance group, and he saw you do it, and he was like, oh my gosh, like he really like put it all together and was like, she's a spy. So this is a bit violent and graphic, but you had sisters, and they didn't seem to be like, there didn't seem to be anything super important about them, like in terms of like, I don't think they're like people that you're connected with now, like, but of course you cared for them, and they were your family. And one of them was like a couple of years younger than you, and she had also come to this school a couple of years behind you, so she lived there too, or she was doing this whole like school thing too. And so one night you went in to meet this man that you had been manipulating for so long, and you walked into the room, and he like had your sister like tied up, and he basically was like, I know who you are, like I've figured you out. And you were like, just, I mean, he basically was like, I'm going to kill your sister in front of you unless you tell me the truth, like about who you are. And the thing is, like, you were looking at your sister, and like she had no idea. Like she was like, I don't even know what's going on. I mean, she was so like innocent and naive almost to all this. Like she literally was there just to be like this like wealthy, whatever. And she's looking at you with like such a sense of like confusion and betrayal. And so you did, like you admitted what was going on, and you were just like, release her. Like she has no idea. She doesn't even know anything. Like let her go, deal with me. Like we'll do with me what you're going to do with me, but like let her go. So he let her go, but he, on the way out, as she was like leaving, he shot her in the leg. And he was like, that's just so that like everyone will always know like whose sister she was or something. Like, so you ended up going to prison. Like he turned you in, and they imprisoned you in France in a German like prison. But it was so close to the end of the war, like you weren't even really there that long. So I didn't even really see much of that. Like it was just, I knew you were there for a bit of time, but when you were released, because they ended up freeing France, you went back to Italy, and you were like completely scorned by your family. So your family was like, we're done with you. You're dead to us. Never come back here. Like, we can't believe that you like betrayed us, and your sister's leg will never be the same. I mean, she was okay, but like she always had this limp, and like they just felt like you just totally betrayed them. And the boy that you had been so close with, he had died. I don't know what happened, if he was like in resistance fighting or what, but he had also died. So you were really like on your own at this point. So what, from this point on, I didn't really see a ton of your life beyond this, but here's what I saw. So first of all, I knew that the info that you had passed on during your couple of years of doing this spy work had saved hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives and was like crucially important in the war effort. So you had like your service like really mattered, like in terms of like the grand scheme of things. Like you had done like a huge service to like the war effort and to helping to like end fascism, not Nazism, occupation. And the network that you were a part of was also like really important. But personally, like you lost everything for it. So there was like this sort of, I don't know, when I tapped into like how you felt about that, like I don't think you knew how important the work you did was. Like I don't think you understood how wide ranging and influential it was, but also like I didn't really get the sense either that you like regretted it, but I think you were just suffering. Like you were just like, I've lost everything. Like I don't know that you were like, I wish I hadn't done it, but it was just kind of like, wow, this was the price I paid. So I saw you then later in life, like you were just like kind of wandering the streets. Like I think you were like not like homeless, but you were just poor. And it was so interesting because the whole thing took like a totally different turn here where I saw this old woman. This was probably like 10 years after everything had like finished. So you were maybe in your 30s at this point, I guess. And I saw this like old crone woman kind of like watching you as you just like sort of lived your daily life. And she was like in the shadows kind of watching you. And eventually she like approached you and and she was like, you're my next apprentice kind of. So she was like this psychic, like she had been kind of cast out too. She was like this psychic, energetic witch woman, crone. Like crone was the word I just kept hearing, like this kind of old, like hunched over, like definitely cast out by society, whatever. And because you were in a place of such like, I have nothing else, you were like, okay, like what else do I have? Like I have nothing to lose. Like my family has abandoned me and my best friend has died. Like all I do, I don't know like what you were doing for work, but it was very menial. Like it was like selling vegetables or something. Like you were barely making it anyway. So you were like, okay, cool. Like I guess I'll come with you. So I just saw then like over the next couple of decades, like her teaching you everything she knew. I saw you all both doing tarot a lot. I don't know if you're into tarot or whatever, but that was kind of like one of the things I saw her first teaching you. And then, yeah, like you really tapped into these psychic and energetic abilities in yourself. And you realized that when you had been doing the work in France, that you've always had these abilities, and she saw that in you. She called it out, she trained it, but you realized you had always had it. And when you were in France, like that was what had aided you so well in like reading that guy's energy and like manipulating him. Like you were able to use these like kind of energetic abilities to really be like as successful as you were when you were in your spy role. Mm-hmm. I kind of had the sense like Gabby was maybe the old crone. Yeah, like I was trying not to like force her into it because I was like, I really hope I like come across Gabby here. And at first I was like thinking she was your sister, but it didn't feel right. And then I knew it wasn't right. Like mm-hmm. as the story went on. But I feel like maybe she was the old crone. Like I kind of got like the vibe, like maybe Gabby and you two were like, it was almost like you were sisters for the rest of your life because for like literally decades, like you two were just like working together. She was teaching you. And you almost became like sisters almost. Mm-hmm. And at the end of your life, this is the end of the story, but at the end of your life, it was, or not the end of your life, at the end of your father's life, he actually came to you and like your family never spoke to you again. But when he was like nearing the end of his life, he found you like in the village and you never even really saw your family. Like they were removed and you were like in this other village. But he came to you and like apologized and was like, I kind of always could see why you did what you did, but I I could never admit that kind of. So there was like a little bit of redemption with your father, and it felt like he really understood you, but was never able to like publicly say
Mm-hmm.
it. So the theme, like at the very end, like kind of at the end of the whole thing, I heard Nichole went from hiding into plain sight. So it's almost like you went from this like you had this like wealthy like persona, and you were like this spy, and you were hiding everything about who you really were, even as a spy. And even though that actually was really beneficial, like that was a really great skill, and it, if you had been in plain sight about your views, you never would have been able to accomplish what you accomplished as a spy. But it felt like the trajectory of your life was that you went from this phase in the beginning of your life, from like hiding who you really were, to the end, the second half of your life, you were like in plain sight. Like you were like destitute. You were like, here's who I am. Like, this is who I am. I'm learning this like psychic work. I'm the old crone now. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, you kind of became that old crone figure of just like,
Mm-hmm.
everyone can think whatever they want to think of me. Like, I am who I am. And that was the end. So that was the past life that I saw. I'm curious how else that resonates with you. Like,
I feel like there's a lot of pieces that make sense. Like I've always been really interested in the World War II era, more so than, you know, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. I was born in the 80s. I don't really care for the 80s.
mm-hmm.
It's always been like the 40s that have like really stuck out for me, that kind of era. So that part makes sense. I feel like the part about like me being a spy makes sense, just because it's always been something that I've been really interested in, because I'm guessing that was probably the most recent lifetime, if I'm thinking of the timeline, right?
Yeah, I kind of got the sense. Yeah. I didn't ask that specifically. I guess I could have, but I didn't. Yeah. But I mean, a recent lifetime for sure. Like, obviously, just based on the timeline.
Right. Yeah. Timeline wise, that would make sense. Like, that would be what I would remember, because that was the most recent. But I just want to know why I'm not rich in this lifetime.
Okay, well, actually,
why was I born to a wealthy family there? And then I think you said like medieval, right? So I've had like several.
Mm-hmm.
And they said like you've had enough.
So I actually think I have a response to that, which is interesting that you asked that question. So yes, okay. So I feel like it was important for me to understand like that cut into your life where I saw that this was a pattern for you, where you were born into this like this privilege, this wealth, this place of like high status that enabled you to like move more fluidly in between that world, even though you were like, you know, always, you know, this is the thing I keep getting. It's like you were always like, I am who I am, but I'm not who I am. You were like always hiding who you really were. Okay, so I'll say more about that. When this lifetime kind of ended, it like dissolves for me, and then all of a sudden it was like your Akashic Records room was like filled with water. Like I was almost like, okay, like, are we underwater? Like, what's going on? And then the water like changed into mist. And then as the mist dissolved, I saw your room, and it's just like a very standard library. Like there's just like rows of books. And then there was a long table right in front. And on either end of the table, there were these two massive shell sculptures. So it wasn't until then that I thought about that pattern, like as a seashell too. Like I hadn't even thought about that. I just kept thinking about the fan. But if you think about like
it's still the same kind of shape.
Yeah, like it was so weird, because I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like the exact same design. Like, you know, this is such a horrible drawing, but you know how it is, like like that, like kind of seashell. Yeah. Okay, so I was like, okay, interesting. Like, so there's like a water seashell thing going on here. I don't know. I know Gabby is really connected to water. Like, do you have any like strong feeling or connection to water, like astrologically, just like in general?
I'm really scared of water.
Interesting. Okay.
So I have always wondered if maybe I like drowned in a past life or something.
Mm,
But yeah, I don't really like going into the ocean. I I don't like going underwater. Yeah,
hmm.
water really scared. I'm terrified of tsunamis.
Interesting.
Yeah, so water is um I'm
Interesting.
really scared of water.
So when I saw it, when I saw the seashells and I saw the water, my first thought was Atlantis. But I was like, this is such a weird departure from what we just did. Like I was
Mhm.
like, so we're going from like this like spy thing to Atlantis. Like at first I was like, I don't know, that just felt so different.
Mhm.
But if you're afraid of water and tsunamis, like they say that Atlantis was essentially like swallowed by like a tsunami and earthquake and then like just this civilization crumbled. I don't know much about
Mm.
Atlantis. I'm not like some
Mhm.
people are really into like Atlantis and Lemuria. Like have you ever heard of Lemuria?
I have. I don't know much about it.
I mean, essentially, like they think that these are just two civilizations that used to be on Earth that were like highly evolved and then were destroyed.
Mm.
And a lot of people think that they have past lives from those, especially a lot of people like interested in energetic work and who are like more into this kind of like
Mhm.
higher consciousness stuff because they
Mhm.
say that those civilizations were more of like higher consciousness civilizations. But maybe look into it. Look into Atlantis because that was the word that I felt. But I just
Okay.
thought like this is such a weird like shift.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, that's what came forward. And then following the theme, I saw three. So there were seats at the table. So I was like, is anybody coming forward? Like, hello.
Right. Right.
And so three people came forward. The first one, I don't even know how to describe this other than like, I did get the vibe of like mermaid, like a mermaid woman, which is funny because you're like, I'm afraid of water. I was thinking like, she must
But
really love water.
Gabby's so into like mermaids and water. I mean, I liked
Really?
Little Mermaid, but yeah, Gabby swears she's a mermaid.
Well, actually, even when I was in the room, I was like, I'm not in Gabby's room, am I? Like, I was like, I'm here for Nichole, like, just clarifying. Because the
Mhm.
water thing was so pronounced, and I just kept thinking in my, like, logical brain as I was
Mhm.
jetting into it, I was like, I'm here for Nichole, not Gabby. But they
Right.
were like, we know. um,
Mm.
so this first woman that came forward was like, she was very fair skinned. She had long, long, long blonde hair, and she just had this, like, very watery, flowy feel about her. And I got the word like mermaid as she came forward. The next one that came forward in the middle was, again, like no other way to describe this except for like Poseidon ish. Like that's just the word I got. Like the typical like view that you would have of him with like I don't even know what you call it, his like trident or whatever, like very
Mhm.
like that, like strong. He didn't have a shirt on, like trident. Like that was definitely it. Does that resonate?
Yes, go ahead and then I'll tell you why.
Okay. And then the third person that came forward was like a very dark skinned, almost got the sense of like an African, like rainmaker was the word I got. He had like, I don't even know how to describe this, like markings on his face that looked
Mhm.
like raindrops. Like it was very much like a rainmaker theme. So again, like the water thing, I'm like, oh my
I
gosh,
do
this
love
is
the
like,
rain though. I love the rain. I love rainy environments. Our sister lives up north,
uh huh.
in the like Pacific Northwest. It's always raining and I like love it over there. I feel just so like peaceful when it rains here. I love it. So like that
Mm,
part I do. I love the sound of the rain, but I
okay.
don't like it's primarily the ocean, right? Or like anything deep. Anything deep.
Hmm.
That's we we went to Sicily. We went to
Mm-hmm.
Sicily a few years
Mm,
ago and we were at some beach and the beach out there, the water, the ocean, there's no waves. It was
mm,
perfectly still. And that was the first time that I was able to go into the water. And I mean, I stayed in the water for hours because it was so warm. I wasn't scared. It wasn't deep, but it's the deepness that.
interesting.
Mhm.
So the presence of the Rainmaker felt very gentle, like very calm, very gentle. Like I can even feel the energy right now. It's like this very calming presence. Poseidon's energy was really intense. Like I was like, okay, you're very intense. And then the mermaid woman also very like, I can feel her energy right now. Like I'm trying to, like, it's like very like wise, I guess, like really laid back, wise, kind of like laughter. Like she's like, it just, yeah, like way more gentle. So I guess he was flanked by two gentle energies. His intensity was flanked in by two gentler sides.
A sandwich.
Yeah. So those were the three that came forward. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's funny because when I picture my guide, I think I talked about this in one of the episodes we did. I picture my guide to be like King Triton.
Oh,
but not as hot as King Triton, but King Triton's like
Yeah.
shirtless and he's buff and he's like super hot, but like kind of like very wise. And sometimes he shifts from being like shirtless to being kind of like robed, but that kind of like long, kind of white hair.
That's it. I was going to say this guy was old, so he wasn't hot. I mean, maybe he was hot.
But King Triton's old and he's hot, He's like buff and he has that V shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
The beard, right? Like I just like
definitely
white.
had the long beard.
Yeah, like the very picture you would have of like a wise kind of like old,
Yeah.
white, yeah.
But he wasn't frail. Like sometimes I picture the wizards that are like kind of small and like
like
wise,
a wizard, but not exactly
like Dumbledore or something.
Right.
Oh,
but like a not frail version. Yeah, like a strong,
like a buff. Yeah, he was very buff and big. Yep. Okay, that's really interesting. I don't know. Is King Triton? Who is that? Like
from Little Mermaid? Her dad?
Oh, is that it? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was essentially so, okay, that's crazy. Okay, so I'm just going to go forward here. So he started talking first and he started talking first. He was very intense. Like I was like, Nichole asked me to be here just for the record. Like, he was like, I know, she did. I know.
She's always fucking asking for something.
He was just like so intense. I was like, okay, I was welcomed here. So that's when the mermaid woman like leaned over and kind of like playfully like poked him. And she was like, Father, stop. Like
it's like air. It's like the Little Mermaid.
That's right. So when you said that, I'm like, so obviously these two do have some, like she called him father. So I guess this is her father. I don't know. But she was so welcoming. She's like, stop, Dad. Like stop. Like you're welcome here. We knew you were coming. He's putting on a front. Like don't ignore him.
He's a big
teddy bear.
He's a big softie.
Yeah. Like that was the vibe I was getting with them. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So anyways, I was like, okay, I'm here. Like, I saw this past life. Like, what do I need to know? Like, what does what does Nichole need to know? Like, what am I here for? So I'm going to start reading. This is where I started the writing, like automatic writing, sort of.
Oh, okay.
So she said to me, she didn't tell me her name. She said, I oversee all of the shape shifters. And I was like, okay. I don't know what that is. And she was like, okay, let me go get you a book. So she like left for a second, came back, and it was like the book of shape shifters. And so oftentimes when somebody brings a book, that's when I know I'm going to start like writing. Like it's just going to be like, I'm going to start almost, I don't really see the words in the book, but it's like, I know what's coming.
Right.
Okay. So here's what this book says. A shape shifter is a special kind of soul. These souls come to Earth for a very specific purpose. They are skilled at appearances, able to plant their feet in one place while collecting energy to deliver to another. So this is like very much like the spy feeling. Like water shifting through sand, they can penetrate spaces other souls don't have the discipline to explore. They are double agents of sorts. Those in their physical presence believe that the person is one of them, while energetically the soul belongs to others. These souls are balancers. They come to places and spaces that need to be brought into equilibrium, and through their cunning, brave, disciplined action, they do just that. Nichole is an experienced shapeshifter who has taken on this work in many lifetimes, including the one you witnessed when you arrived. Often there is a betrayal in this work, betrayal often of family. Often shapeshifters come or choose wealthier families as their base. It's their access point. Their physical reality offers them access into places they might otherwise not be able to go. Most often souls choose families whose other souls are not their most close connections and whose souls are there to learn lessons about excess and privilege. So that kind of like made sense to me because in the lifetime I had seen, it didn't really feel like anyone in your biological family was like your closest soul companions. It was like that other boy who you were really good friends with, the crone, like your family unit was not actually your like soulmates
like
or whatever.
My soul family.
Yeah, so that made sense when I heard that. And those people are there to learn different lessons.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe even your dad in that life, maybe the soul of your dad in that life like really did learn his lesson. Like he came around and was like, wow, maybe I did like learn about excess, privilege, humility. I don't know. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Sometimes in the family, there's a close soul, but usually their closest connections are found elsewhere. Okay, so I was like, okay, that's good to know about shapeshifters, like interesting. And so I said, what about this lifetime for Nichole? Like you were asking earlier. So she said, in this lifetime, Nichole has chosen something different, a different configuration. In this lifetime, her closest soul connections, her collaborators, are her family. It's a bit of a reversal from what she is used to. And I said, is she still a shapeshifter soul? And she said, yes, but this time her task is to grow in her assignment within her family, like her family of origin, and take it out into the world rather than collaborate with others outside of her family to change the reality in which her family lives and is a part of. So it's almost like it felt like you were like, well, okay. So I asked why. And she said, Nichole's maturity has increased. She used to need to be drawn in. Now she's ready to hit the ground running, so to speak. So she'll be the one drawing in others. So I had the sense that like in your past lives, like you needed like there was an outside force who drew you in. So the boy drew you in, like the crone drew you in, like you were kind of like starting in a certain place and then you got pulled into the like energetic work of like shifting energy. But in this lifetime, you're almost like in a different spot where you are like surrounded by your soul family. You're growing in that, and then you're going to be the one drawing in others. So it's kind of it felt like a bit of a reversal. And I said, what does she need to know about this? And she said, she has the capacity to be a leader, not just a spy, but a leader of a spy network. I don't think that's like
right.
Literal for the record.
No,
just yeah.
Darn.
Maybe. I don't know. Are you going to be, I don't know.
I mean, I think I'd be really good at it. Maybe.
Yeah. She needs to know that she's ready, that she's brave, that she's gifted, that she's skilled, and that it is time to spread her wings. So that's what I heard at the end. And then it was like 11 o'clock. So I was like, all right, I gotta go. But that was sort of like what I felt like. Yeah, it was really interesting. I've never heard of a shapeshifter. Like I've never come across any of this. So I don't know.
That sounds like a good episode topic because something for me to have to research, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about it. So that's just what came through.
Wow.
Like, what does that feel like for you? Does any of it like?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it makes sense. A lot of it really resonates. Just right, the connection to, you know, like World War II, the being a spy, like those things make sense just because those are like I said before, things that I'm really interested in now, that I've always kind of been really interested in. The guide, or I guess my counsel, right? Probably the same thing.
I mean, yeah, I think, yeah.
Same thing. That makes sense. I definitely want to do some research into Atlantis to see if maybe there's part of the connection as far as maybe the fear of water.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me too. I think if you dig into that, you might discover something there.
Hmm. Yeah, and then the last piece that she said about like pulling people in, um, and I was almost wondering again, like, are you sure you're in mine and not Gabby's? Because I feel like Gabby's the one in this lifetime that is like doing like the pulling in,
Hmm.
right? Where she kind of like also, I mean, she didn't really pull me in. I was already kind of like dipping my toes here and there throughout the years.
Yeah.
But right, I feel like she's kind of been the one that's like taken me on too, like the apprentice, like the old crone.
Hmm.
So that kind of feels familiar. And yeah, I just wonder what that's gonna look like.
I mean, I had the sense like in the as I was kind of writing down the last part, like when I said at the end of your past life that you went from hiding to plain sight, it almost feels like your soul is kind of like on that same like trajectory. Like in these past lives, you started off hiding maybe, and then you were more in plain sight, but like it's like almost like your soul is ready to like start in plain sight this time, or maybe not this lifetime, but like this might be the bridge into, you know, whatever your next lifetimes are. Like you might kind of start out more in that plain sight, if that makes sense. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
If like I can feel what that feels like, but I'm not sure if I'm communicating it well. Like you're making a big shift
Mm-hmm.
towards, yeah, like
No,
being
yeah,
who you really are.
yeah, I get what you're saying. Because you said right, a lot of it was like a lot of hiding, and even with even just this, I feel like it's a lot of hiding to a degree. And
Hmm.
then there's times when Gabby's like, "You have a you have a podcast now that you talk about these things. Like you're kind of out there." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
no, but I don't talk about it in
Hmm.
everyday life. I don't talk about it with friends. I don't talk about it with family, right? It's still very much just like a big part that I hide."
Mm.
So that would make sense that okay, I'm kind of out there, but right, but I still kind of have my fan. I still am like
Hmm.
hiding behind the fan a little bit,
Yeah.
but getting
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you're like, it's like she said or whatever, like you're kind of shifting from like being the person who is like open,
mhm,
because in all these lifetimes you've been open, right? You haven't been like, you know, oh, I don't want any of this. Like you're
right.
open. So you've
Mhm.
been called by people who, like I sensed that your friend in the old life and the old crone, like they sensed your openness. Like they sensed that you were like, you needed to just be drawn out a
Mhm.
little bit.
Right.
But I feel like where you're going is like you're ready to be the one who's calling others out, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like you're ready to step into that different role of like, okay, I've been in many lifetimes this person who had the openness and the ability to be called forth, but now it's time for me to be the one calling others forth
Right.
a bit. Like that's kind of how it
Mhm.
felt for me.
Mhm. Wonder. Yeah, I wonder what that's gonna look like.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat with you a little bit. Like I'm kind of
Mhm.
like, because I'm the same as you. I'm still kind of like, ugh, I don't know. Like I don't talk about this work in my regular life that much.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, with closest friends and my husband and stuff, but like, I don't know. Like when I look at other people online, I'm always like, there's like Gabby. Like I'm like, Gabby is like out, like she's like, this is who I
Mhm.
am. I'm offering my business. Like I'm like, that is
Mhm.
not me at all. Like I'm
Mm-mm.
not there, you know?
Yeah, I'm
So I
not there
kind of
either.
understand that sort of middle place of like,
Mhm.
like I'm
Yeah.
kind of out there, kind of not. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, it seems like you're ready. Like it seems like she needs to know that she's ready. She's brave. She's gifted. She's skilled, and it's time to spread her wings. Like that was the final kind of like parting words. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's very encouraging for
It,
you.
it is.
Like,
It's just it's just scary still. Like, well, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? Like,
I know.
what am I
Yeah.
ready for? I'm
Yeah.
not ready.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's more of an energetic shift
Yeah.
inward of like believing. I mean, maybe it's not an action item of like, I need to build a business or I need to like
Mhm.
start offering something, or like maybe it's more of just like leaning into that energy of like, what does it feel like? If you believed that, like, what would it feel like, you know,
Right.
to feel ready? Like,
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me wonder, like, I'm feeling this right now. Like, maybe if you did have an Atlantis life, maybe you were, it makes me wonder if maybe you were more of like a leader in that life. And maybe since then you've had these more like spy type lives where you're like, kind of like, ooh, I don't know. It makes me wonder if there was just like some trauma that pushed you back from like stepping into your abilities right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
like, and needing to like be drawn in, you know?
Yeah.
I would look into the Atlantis thing. That felt pretty
Okay.
strong, just with the shells and like two of your guides. I mean, like the King Triton Poseidon
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
figure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't seem to fit when I did the reading. Like I was like, that was so weird. Like the shells were so random, but they did
Mm-hmm.
fit the design of your key.
Right. Yeah.
And the fan, like that kind of fanning. I don't know. Super interesting. Like those connections. Now that I'm kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, I'll definitely do some research because even right, like Atlantis has never been anything that I've been really into. Not the way I am with like, World War II and
Mm-hmm.
like that era. So
Mm-hmm.
it's never really been anything that I know much about. So that'll definitely be something interesting to look into for sure.
Yeah.
See if
Yeah. I think
anything
that
is
would be.
sparked.
Yeah, I would definitely look into that. There might be
Mm-hmm.
something there for you
Yeah.
to reclaim.
Well, thank you.
You're
I can't
welcome.
wait to share this. I'm surprised Gabby hasn't texted me yet to ask
Well, I feel like,
how it was.
I hope it like settles with you. I mean, hopefully, I mean, I think there were some things that you picked up on just immediately with this, but as it settles, like, just let me know if
Yeah.
want me to look back into something or whatever.
Yeah, I'll
I'd
let you
say
know
at
if
least
any.
let
Yeah,
it
let it
settle at least
marinate
like
for
a
a
week.
while.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm happy to like go back in and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
That's really interesting.
welcome.
Yeah.
Let
Have
me
you
go ahead.
ever done like a past life regression, like hypnosis?
I did
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
How was that?
It was good. It would take me a long time to explain it, but the life that I saw was like
Oh, is this
not
what
at
you talked
all.
about?
No, I've
No?
done
Okay.
like my own past life. Like
Oh,
I'll
okay.
kind of do what I just did for you, like for
Mm-hmm.
myself. But I wanted to try like a regression with another
Right.
person. So I did it with somebody here in Charlotte, and she was great. Like I really liked her. I felt great vibes with her. I thought the session was great. But what I asked for specifically when I went into it was I wanted to see a life where I was like really in my power,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I have similar things with you
Mm-hmm.
going on where I'm like in this like wishy-washy, and I'm like, I want to see a life where I was like really in my power, and maybe that will like help me kind of get back to that place of confidence. And like the life that I saw was so unexpected, and like I did it in like February. So like 4 months ago, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure it out. Like
Mm.
I thought I was going to be like a witch or like a wise woman or like a medicine woman. And I was like a
Right.
male Roman soldier. And it was like
Oh,
I mean, the life was really interesting. And there were some themes in it that I was like marinating on, but I still don't know why that's the life that came forward.
interesting.
When what I really wanted was to see myself as like a warrior
Yeah.
princess. But it was really intense. Like I was like, the whole experience was very intense. But I still don't really feel like I know what exactly I was supposed to take from it. So,
Mm. Okay.
um, anyway, yeah, but I have done
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it was a good experience. Like I think it was like, I'm glad I did it. It just didn't. I was hoping for something easier
Yeah. Yeah.
and more straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you. I need to I'm
yeah,
gonna call Gabby and tell her about it, and then I want to ask her about the one that she had with you. I feel like she maybe told me, but I need a refresher about hers
yeah.
to kind of
Hers
compare them
was
to.
Yeah, hers was, yeah. I didn't really see I don't think I saw like a past life for her. It was more like I saw her guide. It was really
Mm.
interesting. So
Okay.
I did see some past things for her, but not like yours. That was like a
Right.
full like story.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw that for her. I do get that like probably half the time.
Mm.
So it's my
Okay.
favorite. I like those. So
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you,
All right,
Ashley.
Nichole. Well, sit with it and let me know what questions you have.
I
And I'm happy
will.
to